War Commander Zexthal stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the stars through the huge window. His ship was called the Dominant Fang, and it was the biggest and strongest ship in his fleet. Behind him, 200 other warships waited for his orders. Each ship was filled with weapons that could destroy entire cities. The War Commander was not like humans. He looked like a giant lizard that walked on two legs. His skin was dark green and covered with thick scales. His eyes were yellow and cold. Sharp teeth filled his mouth. He had conquered many worlds for the Kethvar Empire, and he had never lost a battle. War Commander said his second-in-command, "Our scouts have found the next target world." Zexthal turned around. "Show me." A large screen appeared in the air. It showed a blue and green planet with white clouds. The planet had one moon and was the third world from its star. "The planet is called Earth," the officer said. "It has only one intelligent species. Yet they call themselves humans. Our scans show they are very weak." Zexthal looked at the information on his screen. The humans had only been traveling between stars for a few years. Their weapons were simple. Their ships were small and slow. They had no real defenses. "How many ships do they have?" Zexthal asked. "Less than 100, War Commander. Most are not even warships. They use them for trade and exploration." Zexthal laughed. It was a cold, scary sound. "This will be easy. We have destroyed species much stronger than these humans." Far away, near the edge of Earth's solar system, Captain Jake Miller was having a normal day on his ship. The Defiant was a small warship that patrolled the outer areas of human space. Jake was a tall man with brown hair and blue eyes. He had been in the Earth Defense Force for 10 years. "Captain," called Lieutenant Amy Ross from her station. Amy was the communications officer. She was young with red hair and was very good with alien languages. "I'm getting some strange signals." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of signals?" "They're not human, sir. The patterns are completely different from anything we've seen before." Jake looked at the data on Amy's screen. The signals were coming from the direction of Jupiter. They were very strong and seemed to be some kind of military communication. "Can you understand any of it?" Jake asked. Amy worked on her computer for several minutes. "I can make out a few words, sir. They keep saying something about conquest and submission. And there's another word that might mean fleet." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "How far away are these signals coming from?" "Near Jupiter, sir. But that's impossible. We don't have any ships out there." Jake thought for a moment. Then he picked up his communication device. "This is Captain Miller calling Luna Command. I need to speak with Admiral Clark immediately." A few minutes later, Admiral Ben Clark's face appeared on the screen. Clark was an older man with gray hair and many years of military experience. He looked tired. "What is it, Miller?" Clark asked. "Sir, we're picking up alien communications near Jupiter. My officer thinks they might be military signals." Clark looked interested but not worried. "Alien signals? Are you sure they're not just some kind of space noise?" "No, sir. Lieutenant Ross has decoded parts of the messages. They mention conquest and fleets." Clark was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head. "Miller, we've been looking for aliens for years. Every time someone thinks they've found something, it turns out to be nothing. Send me your data and I'll have our experts look at it." "Sir, I really think this might be serious." "Miller, even if there are aliens out there, we're not defenseless. We have the best technology humans have ever built. Our plasma cannons can destroy asteroids. Our shields can stop anything. Don't worry so much." The communication ended. Jake looked at Amy, who had been listening to the conversation. "Keep monitoring those signals," Jake told her, "and try to decode more of their language." 2 days later, something happened that changed everything. Near Jupiter, space began to bend and twist. Bright lights flashed, and then huge ships started appearing. First 10, then 50, then 100. Soon, 200 massive alien warships floated in space. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. They were dark and covered with weapons. Strange lights glowed along their sides. On the biggest ship, War Commander Zexthal looked at Earth through his screen. The small blue planet looked so peaceful and weak. "Send the message," he ordered. Communication was sent toward Earth. It traveled at the speed of light and reached human space stations in a few hours. Admiral Clark was in his office on Luna, Earth's moon, when the message arrived. His communication officer called him urgently. "Admiral, you need to see this right away." Clark went to the communication center. On the main screen was the face of War Commander Zexthal. The alien's yellow eyes stared directly at him. "People of Earth, Zexthal said in perfect English. I am War Commander Zexthal of the Kethvar Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems. Your species is weak and primitive. You have 24 hours to surrender completely. Give up all your weapons and submit to our rule. If you refuse, we will destroy every human in the galaxy. Your planet will burn and your species will be extinct. Choose wisely. The message ended. Clark stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Around him, his officers waited quietly. How many ships? Clark asked finally. Our long-range sensors count 200, sir. They're all much larger than our biggest ships. Clark thought about Earth's defenses. 78 ships in the defense fleet. Space stations with plasma cannons, shield generators around major cities. It didn't seem like enough, sir, said his second-in-command. What are your orders? Clark looked at Earth through the window. The beautiful blue planet where billions of humans lived their lives. Where children played and families loved each other. Where humanity had built everything they cared about. Send a message to all defense fleet ships, Clark said. Tell them to prepare for battle. And send another message to every human colony in the galaxy. Tell them that if we fall, they should run as far and as fast as they can. Sir, are we really going to fight them? Their fleet is much bigger than ours. Clark smiled grimly. Son, humans didn't become the dominant species on Earth by running away from bigger predators. We became dominant by being too stubborn to know when we're beaten. War Commander Zexthal waited for Earth's surrender message. He had received similar messages from 17 other species. They all begged for mercy. They all offered to serve the Empire in exchange for their lives. But no message came from Earth. Instead, his sensors detected something else. The small human fleet was moving. All 78 ships were heading toward his position near Jupiter. Zexthal was confused. No species had ever chosen to fight when faced with such overwhelming odds. War Commander, said his officer, the humans are approaching our position. Should we prepare for battle? Zexthal looked at the data again. 78 small ships against 200 large ones. It made no sense, yes, he said slowly. Prepare for battle. But be ready for them to surrender when they see our power up close. He had no idea how wrong he was about humans. Admiral Clark stood in the command center on Luna Base watching the tactical display. Red dots showed the alien fleet near Jupiter. Blue dots showed human ships moving to intercept them. The numbers were not encouraging. Admiral, said Captain Lisa Park over the communication system, reconnaissance squadron ready for departure. Clark looked at Lisa's image on his screen. She was a brave officer with short black hair and steady brown eyes. Her squadron of 6 fast ships would be the first to face the aliens up close. Remember, Captain Park, your job is to gather information. Don't engage unless you have no choice. We need to know what we're fighting. Understood, sir. We'll be careful. Lisa's squadron moved toward Jupiter at maximum speed. Her ship, the Scout's Honor, was built for speed and sensors, not fighting. But like all human ships, it carried weapons just in case. As they got closer to the alien fleet, Lisa could see how huge the enemy ships really were. Each one was at least 5 times bigger than her largest ship. Commander, said her sensor officer, I'm detecting massive energy readings from those ships. Their weapons are much more powerful than ours. Lisa nodded. Keep scanning. We need to know everything about their technology. Meanwhile, near Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, Commander Troy White was patrolling with his destroyer Lightning Strike. Troy was a young officer with blonde hair and green eyes. He had joined the Defense Force to explore space, not to fight aliens. Commander, called his sensor operator, I'm detecting a small alien ship approaching our position. Troy looked at his display. One alien ship was moving toward them. It was smaller than the big warships, but still larger than his destroyer. They probably want to see what we can do, Troy said. All crew to battle stations. Let's show them. The alien patrol ship was commanded by Sub-Commander Vectal, a young Kethvar officer. This was his first real mission, and he wanted to prove himself to War Commander Zexthal. Commander, said his weapons officer, the human ship is approaching. Should we destroy it? Vectal looked at the small human ship on his screen. It looked weak and primitive compared to his advanced vessel. Yes, but make it quick. War Commander Zexthal wants us to test their defenses. The alien ship fired first. A bright green energy beam shot toward the lightning strike. The beam hit Troy's shields and made them flicker and spark. Shields at 60%, called his tactical officer. Troy gritted his teeth. The alien weapons were definitely stronger than theirs. Return fire. All weapons. The lightning strike fired its plasma cannons. The bright blue beams hit the alien ship's shields, but they didn't seem to do much damage. "Their shields are too strong, sir," the weapons officer reported. Troy watched more alien weapon beams hit his ship. His shields were failing fast. In a few more hits, his ship would be destroyed. "Sir," called Chief Engineer Pete Wilson from the engine room, "our main weapons can't get through their shields. But I have an idea." "Tell me fast, Pete, we don't have much time." "Our mining lasers, sir. They're designed to cut through asteroids. If we focus all of them into one beam, we might be able to punch through their shields." Troy had never heard of using mining lasers as weapons. It sounded crazy, but crazy was better than dead. "Do it, Pete. Reroute all power to the mining lasers." All over the ship, lights dimmed as power flowed to the mining equipment. The lightning strike had 6 mining lasers normally used for asteroid operations. Pete linked them all together and focused them into one powerful beam. "Ready, sir," Pete called. "Fire!" Troy ordered. A brilliant white beam shot from the lightning strike. It was much brighter and more focused than their regular weapons. The beam hit the alien ship's shields and kept going. The shields flickered and failed. The mining laser beam cut deep into the alien ship's hull. Explosions erupted along its side. The ship spun out of control and then exploded in a ball of fire. Troy and his crew stared at their screens in amazement. They had actually destroyed an alien ship. "Pete," Troy said over the communication system, "remind me to give you a promotion if we survive this." On the alien flagship, War Commander Zexthal received the news with shock. "What do you mean, destroyed?" he demanded. "Sub-Commander Vectal's ship is gone, War Commander. The humans used some kind of focused energy weapon we haven't seen before." Zexthal was confused. His intelligence report said humans had weak weapons. How had they destroyed one of his ships? "Send 3 more ships to investigate," he ordered. "And be more careful this time." Captain Lisa Park and her reconnaissance squadron were now close enough to scan the alien fleet in detail. What they found was not encouraging. "Admiral Clark," Lisa reported over long-range communication, "the aliens have weapons that are at least 3 times more powerful than ours. Their shields are much stronger too. But their ships seem to be designed for straight-line fighting. They don't look very maneuverable." Clark processed this information. Human ships were smaller and faster, but the aliens had better weapons and defenses. "Anything else, Captain Park?" "Yes, sir. They seem to form up in very organized patterns. Everything looks planned and orderly. No improvisation." Clark smiled slightly. "Organization and planning were good things, but sometimes they could be weaknesses too. Return to base. Captain Park, we have a battle to plan." As Lisa's squadron headed back toward Earth, she didn't notice the 3 alien ships moving to intercept them. War Commander Zexthal wanted to test human capabilities again. The 3 alien ships surrounded Lisa's squadron. They were much larger and more powerful than the human vessels. "All ships evasive maneuvers," Lisa ordered. "Don't let them get a clean shot." The human ships scattered in different directions. They were much faster and more agile than the alien vessels. But the aliens had longer-range weapons. Green energy beams flashed through space. Most missed the fast-moving human ships, but some found their targets. 2 of Lisa's ships were hit and damaged. "This isn't working," Lisa muttered. Then she had an idea. "All ships, form up on me. We're going to try something new." The 6 human ships came together in a tight formation. Instead of running away, they flew straight toward the largest alien ship. The aliens were surprised. No species had ever voluntarily flown toward them in battle. "Fire all weapons," Lisa ordered. 6 ships fired at once, concentrating all their firepower on one spot on the alien ship's shields. The combined attack was much stronger than individual shots. The alien shields flickered and failed in that one area. The human weapons punched through and damaged the ship's hull. "Again," Lisa shouted. "Keep hitting the same spot." The humans attacked again and again, focusing on the weak point they had created. Finally, the alien ship exploded. The other 2 alien ships retreated quickly. They had never seen tactics like this before. When Lisa returned to Luna Base, Admiral Clark was waiting for her report. "We learned something important, sir," she said. "Their ships are powerful but not very flexible. They fight like they're following a script. But we can adapt and change our tactics in the middle of battle." Clark nodded. "That might be our only advantage. Their technology is better, but maybe our thinking is more flexible." He looked at the tactical display showing both fleets approaching each other. In a few hours, the real battle would begin. "Send a message to all ship commanders," Clark ordered. "Tell them to forget everything they learned in military school. We're not fighting a human enemy. We need to be creative, adaptive, and maybe a little crazy. On the alien flagship, War Commander Zexthul was receiving disturbing reports. He had lost 4 ships to an enemy that was supposed to be weak and primitive. War Commander, said his tactical officer, the humans fight differently than any species we've encountered. They don't follow standard battle patterns. Zexthul thought about this. Every species his empire had conquered fought in predictable ways. They formed defensive lines, protected their important ships, and tried to minimize losses. But these humans seemed to fight with no regard for their own safety. No matter, he said finally. We still have overwhelming numbers and superior technology. When the main battle begins, we will crush them with pure firepower. But deep inside, Zexthul felt something he had never experienced before in battle. Uncertainty. The 2 fleets faced each other in the darkness of space. War Commander Zexthul's 200 ships formed perfect lines like soldiers on parade. Each ship was in its assigned position, ready to execute a battle plan that had worked on 17 different worlds. Admiral Clark's 78 ships looked small and scattered by comparison. But Clark had something the aliens didn't expect, a plan that threw out every rule of space warfare. All ships, this is Admiral Clark, he broadcast to his fleet. You all know the odds. You all know what happens if we lose. But I want you to remember something. We're not here to fight fair. We're here to win. Execute Protocol Berserker. Protocol Berserker was a strategy that most military academies would call insane. Instead of staying together for mutual protection, the human fleet split apart. Each ship or small group of ships had one mission: cause as much damage as possible before being destroyed. Lieutenant Colonel Pete Davis led the fighter squadron from the carrier Earth's Wrath. Pete was a veteran pilot with brown hair and steady hands. He had flown in dozens of training missions, but this was his first real battle. All fighters follow me, Pete said into his radio. We're going straight for their flagship. Beside him, Major Kate Bell checked her weapons one more time. Kate was Pete's wingman and best friend. She had red hair and was known for never backing down from a fight. Pete, she said, that ship has enough weapons to destroy a city. We're just tiny fighters. That's exactly why this might work, Pete replied. They won't expect us to be stupid enough to attack their biggest ship. The human fighters were small and fast. They accelerated toward the alien flagship at maximum speed. Behind them, the main battle was beginning. War Commander Zexthul watched the human fleet spread out in all directions. This was not how battles were supposed to work. Why are they separating? He asked his tactical officer. They're making themselves weaker. I don't know, War Commander. It makes no strategic sense. Zexthul decided to ignore the small human ships and focus on the larger ones. All ships target the human capital ships. Destroy their command vessels first. But as soon as the alien ships turned their weapons toward the larger human vessels, smaller human ships attacked from different directions. It was chaos. Captain Jake Miller commanded the destroyer Defiant. His ship was fast but lightly armed. Instead of fighting the big alien ships directly, he targeted their weapon systems. Full speed at that cruiser, Jake ordered. Amy, get ready to jam their communications. Lieutenant Amy Ross had figured out more of the alien language during the approach. Ready, sir? Their communication frequency is very different from ours. The Defiant flew straight at a large alien ship, firing all weapons at its communication array. The alien ship tried to turn its big guns toward the small destroyer, but Jake's ship was too fast and agile. Hit their antenna, Jake shouted. The Defiant's weapons destroyed the alien ship's main communication system. Suddenly, that ship couldn't talk to the rest of the fleet. All across the battlefield, similar attacks were happening. Human ships ignored the alien weapons and targeted sensors, communications, and engines. They were like a swarm of angry bees attacking a giant. Lieutenant Colonel Pete Davis and his fighters reached the alien flagship. The massive ship's defensive weapons tried to target the small fighters, but they were moving too fast. Kate, take half the squadron and hit their engine section, Pete ordered. I'll take the rest and go for their bridge. Major Kate Bell led 12 fighters toward the rear of the huge ship. The alien point defense guns fired streams of energy at them. 3 fighters were destroyed immediately, but the rest kept going. This is for Earth, Kate shouted as she fired all her missiles at the ship's engine array. The missiles exploded against the alien ship's thick armor, but they weren't powerful enough to cause serious damage. Kate's fighter was hit by defensive fire and began spinning out of control. My engines are gone, she called to Pete. "I can't pull out." Pete watched in horror as his best friend's damaged fighter tumbled toward the alien ship. But Kate wasn't finished fighting. "Tell my family I love them," she said over the radio. Then she aimed her crippled fighter at the alien ship's main weapon and activated her self-destruct. The explosion was enormous. Kate's fighter carried fuel for a long mission, and when it exploded, it took out half of the flagship's primary weapons system. Pete's eyes filled with tears, but he didn't have time to grieve. "All remaining fighters, follow me. Kate just gave us an opening." On another part of the battlefield, Sergeant Ryan Ford was flying a heavy bomber toward a group of alien cruisers. Ryan was a big man with black hair and scars from a training accident. His bomber was loaded with the most powerful explosives humans had. "Bomber Squadron, this is Ford," he said into his radio. "I'm going to try something crazy." Ryan's bomber had been hit by alien fire. His weapons were offline and his engines were failing. Most pilots would have retreated or ejected. But Ryan saw an opportunity. A group of 3 alien ships were flying close together, probably to concentrate their defensive fire. Ryan aimed his crippled bomber straight at the middle ship. "This is Sergeant Ford to any human ships listening," he broadcast. "I'm about to show these aliens why they shouldn't mess with Earth." Ryan's bomber hit the alien cruiser at full speed. The impact alone would have been devastating, but the bomber was also carrying 20 tons of high explosives. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from Earth. The middle alien ship was completely destroyed. The explosion was so powerful that it damaged the other 2 ships as well. One of them lost power and began drifting helplessly. War Commander Zexthal watched his carefully organized fleet fall apart. In less than 1 minute of fighting, he had lost 12 ships. The humans were fighting like nothing he had ever seen. "War Commander," his tactical officer called urgently. "The humans are targeting our command ships specifically." It was true. Instead of fighting random battles, the humans seemed to know exactly which ships were important. They were attacking communication vessels, command ships, and anything that looked like it coordinated the fleet. "How do they know our fleet organization?" Zexthal demanded. "Unknown, War Commander, but they're causing massive disruption to our command structure." Captain Troy White had taken his destroyer Lightning Strike deep into the alien formation. His ship had been damaged in the earlier skirmish, but his crew had repaired it as much as possible. "Chief Wilson," Troy called to his engineer, "can you give me more power to the engines?" "I can give you more power," Pete Wilson replied, "but I can't promise the engines won't explode." "Do it anyway." The lightning strike accelerated beyond its design limits. Troy was heading for what looked like an alien command ship. It was surrounded by smaller escort vessels. But Troy had noticed something important. The escort ships were positioned to protect against attacks from the front and sides, not from above. "All power to the mining lasers," Troy ordered. "We're going to come down on them from the top." The destroyer climbed above the alien formation and then dove straight down. The alien escort ships couldn't turn their weapons upward fast enough to track the attack. Troy's mining lasers cut through the command ship's upper armor like a knife through paper. The ship exploded in a chain reaction that damaged several nearby vessels, but the most devastating attack was happening near the edge of the battle. Captain Lisa Park had taken her fast reconnaissance ship on a mission that seemed impossible. "Computer, calculate the best approach to the alien supply ships," she ordered. Her artificial intelligence responded immediately. "Captain, the alien supply vessels are heavily defended. Attack probability of success is less than 5%. "Good thing I don't believe in math," Lisa muttered. Every fleet needed supply ships to carry fuel, ammunition, and spare parts. Lisa had identified the alien supply convoy and was flying toward it at maximum speed. Her ship was lightly armed, but she didn't need big weapons for what she was planning. The alien supply ships were large and slow, designed for carrying cargo, not fighting battles. But they were protected by a dozen escort vessels. Lisa's ship was hit multiple times as she approached the convoy. Her shields failed, and then her armor began to melt under alien fire, but she kept going. "This is Captain Park to Admiral Clark," she broadcast. "I'm about to do something that will either be remembered as brilliant or stupid." Lisa aimed her damaged ship at the largest alien supply vessel. At the last second, she ejected in an escape pod and let her ship crash into the supply ship's fuel tanks. The explosion was spectacular. The supply ship's fuel ignited and spread to 2 other cargo vessels. In seconds, the aliens lost most of their ammunition and fuel reserves. War Commander Zexthul stared at his tactical display in complete shock. In exactly 63 seconds of combat, his organized fleet had become a scattered mess. He had lost 26 ships and dozens more were damaged. But worse than the ship losses was the complete breakdown of his command structure. His communications were jammed, his supply line was destroyed, and his remaining ships were fighting as individuals instead of as a coordinated fleet. War Commander, his second-in-command said quietly, "Perhaps we should consider withdrawing." Zexthul had never withdrawn from any battle in his entire career. But he had also never fought an enemy like this. War Commander Zexthul tried to understand what had gone wrong. His fleet had superior technology, better weapons, and stronger shields. But somehow these primitive humans were winning. "Analysis officer," he called, "explain to me how we are losing this battle." The analysis officer was a smaller Kethvar with dark blue scales. He had studied 17 previous conquests and had never seen anything like this. "War Commander, the humans are not fighting like any other species we have encountered. Most species fight to preserve their ships and minimize casualties. The humans appear to be fighting to inflict maximum damage regardless of their own losses." Zexthul thought about this. In every previous battle, enemy ships had retreated when damaged. They tried to save themselves and their crews, but these humans seemed to become more dangerous when they were hurt. On the human flagship Earth's Wrath, Admiral Clark was coordinating the battle from the bridge. His ship had been hit multiple times and smoke filled the air. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. "Damage report," Clark called out. "Shields at 30%, reported his tactical officer. "We've lost 2 main batteries and our long-range sensors." Despite the damage, Clark's crew continued to work efficiently. No one panicked. No one suggested retreating. Dr. Susan Hayes was working in the ship's medical bay treating wounded crew members. The medical bay had been hit by alien fire and half the equipment was destroyed, but Susan kept working by flashlight. "Doctor," said a wounded engineer, "maybe you should evacuate to a safer part of the ship." Susan looked up from bandaging his arm. "Son, there is no safer part of the ship. We're in the middle of a space battle, but we're going to keep doing our jobs until this is over." A few decks below, Engineering Chief Gary Stone was trying to keep the ship's power systems running. The main reactor had been damaged and warning lights flashed everywhere. "Chief," called one of his assistants, "the reactor is running at 160% capacity. It's not safe." Gary wiped sweat from his forehead. "Nothing about this situation is safe. But if we don't keep power flowing to the weapons, the whole human race might be extinct tomorrow. Keep pushing the reactor." This was what War Commander Zexthul couldn't understand. Every human seemed willing to die for the others. When one ship was damaged, other ships immediately moved to protect it even if it put them in more danger. Captain Jake Miller's destroyer Defiant had lost its main engines. The ship was drifting and couldn't maneuver properly. In any normal battle, the ship would be abandoned. Instead, 5 other human ships formed a protective circle around the Defiant. They used their own bodies as shields while Jake's crew repaired the engines. "This is Captain White to Captain Miller," came a voice over the radio. Troy White was commanding one of the protective ships. "How long do you need for repairs?" "At least 10 minutes, Jake replied. "You've got it. We'll hold them off." Troy's ship Lightning Strike was already badly damaged from previous fighting. His shields were gone and his armor was melted in several places. But he positioned his ship between the aliens and the helpless Defiant. An alien cruiser approached, firing its massive weapons at the group of human ships. Troy flew directly into the line of fire. "Sir," called his weapons officer, "we can't take much more damage." "We don't need to survive," Troy replied. "We just need to buy Jake enough time to get his engines back online." The alien weapons hit Troy's ship again and again. His hull began to crack and atmosphere leaked into space, but he kept his ship between the aliens and his friend. War Commander Zexthul watched this behavior with growing confusion. No species had ever fought this way. The smart thing for the human ships would be to abandon the damaged vessel and save themselves. "War Commander," said his tactical officer, "the humans are fighting to protect each other instead of fighting to win." "That makes no sense," Zexthul replied. "Protecting damaged ships weakens their overall force." But as he watched, he began to see that the human behavior actually made them stronger, not weaker. When human crews knew their friends would never abandon them, they fought harder. They took bigger risks because they trusted their fellow humans. Captain Lisa Park had survived her escape pod ejection and was now aboard the cruiser New Hope. The ship's captain had been killed in the fighting, so Lisa was now in command. "This is Captain Park to all human ships," she broadcast. "I'm seeing a weakness in their formation. If we can hit their command ship again, we might be able to disrupt their entire fleet." The alien command ship was heavily protected and surrounded by escort vessels. Attacking it would be almost impossible. "I'll do it," came a voice over the radio. It was Commander Sarah Lee from the frigate Braveheart. Sarah was a young officer with blonde hair and blue eyes. She had graduated from the academy only 2 years ago. "Sarah, that's suicide," Lisa replied. "Their defenses are too strong." "Maybe. But if we don't try, we're all dead anyway." Sarah's ship was small and fast, but it was also badly damaged. Half her weapons were gone and her shields were completely failed. But she had an idea. "All ships, I need you to keep their escorts busy. Give me 30 seconds to reach the command ship." 6 human vessels immediately attacked the alien escorts. It was obviously a diversion, but the aliens had to respond to the threat. Sarah's frigate accelerated toward the alien command ship. Defensive weapons fired at her, and her ship was hit repeatedly, but she kept going. At the last moment, Sarah didn't ram her ship into the enemy vessel. Instead, she ejected all of her remaining missiles at point-blank range and then used her ship's momentum to crash into the command ship's communication array. The explosion destroyed both ships, but it also left the alien fleet without central coordination. War Commander Zexthul felt his command ship shake from the explosion. His main communication system was destroyed, and he could no longer coordinate his fleet effectively. "War Commander," his second-in-command said urgently, "we have lost contact with 40% of our ships. The humans have systematically destroyed our command structure." For the first time, Zexthul began to understand what he was really fighting. These humans weren't just defending their planet. They were defending their families, their friends, and their way of life. Every human ship fought as if the survival of their entire species depended on their individual actions. Because it did. On the human side, Admiral Clark was receiving damage reports from across his fleet. The numbers were devastating. Only 32 ships were still operational, and most of those were badly damaged. But something amazing was happening. Instead of becoming weaker, his remaining ships seemed to be fighting harder. Every loss made the survivors more determined. "Admiral," called his communication officer, "Captain Miller reports his engines are back online. The Defiant is returning to the fight." Clark smiled grimly. Jake's ship had been saved by the sacrifice of 3 other vessels. Now it was his turn to protect someone else. Lieutenant Colonel Pete Davis was still flying his fighter, even though most of his squadron had been destroyed. He had seen Major Kate Bell die protecting the fleet. He had watched dozens of friends sacrifice themselves for the mission. "This is Colonel Davis to any remaining fighters," he broadcast. "We're down to 6 ships, but we're not done yet. Kate died to give us a chance. Let's not waste it." The remaining human fighters regrouped and attacked another alien cruiser. They flew with skill and determination that came from knowing their friends were counting on them. War Commander Zexthul looked at his tactical display and realized something that chilled him to his core. His fleet was not fighting 6 humans. His fleet was fighting one organism with 78 parts. When one part was damaged, the other parts moved to protect it. When one part was destroyed, the others became stronger. The humans weren't individuals fighting separately. They were a single, coordinated entity, and that entity was winning. "War Commander," his tactical officer reported, "we have lost 53 ships. The human fleet is down to 32 vessels, but they are still attacking." Zexthul stared at the numbers. He had started the battle with overwhelming superiority. Now his forces were nearly equal to the human fleet, and the humans were still fighting as if they had nothing to lose. Because they didn't have anything to lose. If they lost this battle, their entire species would be extinct. "Sir," his second-in-command said quietly, "perhaps it is time to consider withdrawal." War Commander Zexthul had conquered 17 worlds. He had never retreated from any battle, but he had also never faced an enemy that fought like this. The humans were teaching him something that no military academy had ever taught. Sometimes, the species that is willing to sacrifice everything is the species that wins. The battle had been raging for almost an hour, but the most important minutes had been the first 60 seconds. In that brief time, The humans had destroyed War Commander Zexthol's carefully planned strategy and turned an organized conquest into bloody chaos. Admiral Clark stood on the bridge of the Earth's Wrath, surrounded by smoke and sparks. His flagship was barely holding together, but it was still fighting. Around him, his crew worked at damaged stations, keeping the ship operational through determination and skill. "Damage report," Clark called out. "Admiral, we've lost main power to decks 5 through 9, reported his engineering officer. "Life support is running on backup power. We have hull breaches on 3 levels." Despite the devastating damage, no one suggested surrender. No one asked about evacuation. They all knew what was at stake. "Sir," called his communication officer, "I'm receiving a message from the alien flagship." Clark nodded. "Put it on screen." War Commander Zexthol's face appeared on the main display. The alien commander looked different than he had at the beginning of the battle. His yellow eyes showed something that had never been there before. Respect. "Admiral Clark," Zexthol said, "I am War Commander Zexthol of the Kethvar Empire. I wish to discuss terms." Clark was surprised. The aliens still had more ships than the humans. They could probably still win if they kept fighting. "What kind of terms?" Clark asked. "I am prepared to withdraw my fleet from your solar system. In exchange, you will allow my remaining ships to leave safely." Clark looked at his tactical display. The human fleet was down to 23 operational ships. Many of those were heavily damaged. But the alien fleet had also paid a heavy price. They had lost over half their ships. "Why?" Clark asked. "You still outnumber us." Zexthol was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was different. Less arrogant. More thoughtful. "Admiral, in my career, I have conquered 17 star systems. I have defeated species with technology superior to yours, but I have never fought an enemy like humans." "What do you mean?" "Most species fight to preserve themselves. They calculate odds and minimize losses. But your species fights for each other. When one of your ships is damaged, others risk themselves to protect it. When one of your people dies, the others fight harder." Clark understood. The aliens had expected humans to fight like a business calculation. Maximum results with minimum risk. But humans fought like a family protecting their home. "Every species we have conquered feared death," Zexthol continued. "But your people seem to fear something else more than death. They fear failing their friends." It was true. Captain Jake Miller had risked his ship to save Troy White. Major Kate Bell had died to protect her squadron. Sergeant Ryan Ford had sacrificed himself to damage the alien fleet. Each human had fought not just for victory, but for the people they cared about. "War Commander," Clark said, "if you leave our solar system now, we won't follow you. But if you ever come back, we'll be ready." Zexthol nodded slowly. "Admiral, I do not think my empire will return to human space. Today you have taught us something that we did not know was possible." The communication ended. Across the battlefield, the surviving alien ships began to withdraw. They moved slowly and carefully, expecting the humans to attack them while they were retreating. But Admiral Clark gave a different order. "All ships, let them go. We've made our point." Captain Lisa Park, now commanding the cruiser New Hope, asked over the communication system, "Admiral, shouldn't we pursue them? We could destroy more of their ships." "No, Captain. We fought to defend Earth, not to conquer an empire. Let them leave and tell others what they learned here." As the alien fleet disappeared into hyperspace, the surviving human ships began the sad task of counting their losses. 55 ships had been destroyed. Thousands of brave men and women had died, but Earth was safe. On his flagship, War Commander Zexthol sat alone in his command center. His second-in-command approached carefully. "War Commander, what should I tell High Command about this battle?" Zexthol thought for a long time before answering. "Tell them that we have encountered a species unlike any other in the galaxy. The humans are not just another primitive species to be conquered. What should our classification be for them?" Zexthol accessed his computer and began typing a new entry in the Galactic Threat Database. Species, humans. Homeworld Earth Sol System. Technology level moderate. Military strength. Extreme hazard. Warning. This species exhibits unprecedented tactical adaptability and willingness to sacrifice individual units for collective survival. Standard conquest protocols are ineffective against humans. Human military doctrine appears based on mutual protection rather than individual preservation. When threatened, humans become more dangerous rather than more cautious. They adapt their tactics in real time and show no fear of death when protecting their allies. Recommendation: avoid all contact with human space. If contact is unavoidable, overwhelming force must be applied within the first minute of engagement, or mission failure is probable. Note: humans do not fight like other species. They fight like a pack of predators defending their young. Proceed with extreme caution. Back on Earth, the surviving ships returned to their bases. The celebration was quiet and sad. They had won, but the victory had cost them many friends. Captain Jake Miller sat in his quarters aboard the Defiant, writing letters to the families of crew members who had died. It was the hardest part of command, but he owed it to them. Dr. Susan Hayes worked in the hospital on Luna Base, treating wounded crew members. She had worked for 18 hours straight, but she wouldn't stop until everyone was cared for. Lieutenant Colonel Pete Davis stood at the memorial wall where they had posted the names of pilots who had died in the battle. Major Kate Bell's name was at the top of the list. Pete placed a photo of their squadron next to her name. "We did it, Kate," he whispered. "We saved Earth." Admiral Clark was in his office reading reports from across the fleet. The damage was extensive, but it could be repaired. The ships could be rebuilt, but the people who had died could never be replaced. A young officer knocked on his door. "Admiral, there's someone here to see you." A boy about 12 years old entered the office. He had brown hair and blue eyes, and he was wearing his best clothes. "Admiral Clark," the boy said. "My name is Alex Cooper. My dad was Captain Neil Cooper of the destroyer Brave Star. He died in the battle." Clark remembered Captain Cooper. He had commanded one of the ships that protected Jake Miller's damaged destroyer. "Your father was a hero, son. He saved a lot of lives." Alex stood up straighter. "Admiral, I want to join the Defense Force when I'm old enough. I want to be like my dad." Clark looked at the young boy and saw the future of humanity. The aliens might come back someday. Other threats might appear. But as long as humans like Alex Cooper existed, Earth would never be defenseless. "Son," Clark said, "when you're old enough, we'll be honored to have you." As Alex left the office, Clark looked out the window at Earth. The beautiful blue planet looked peaceful in the sunlight. But now everyone knew that peace had to be protected. The humans had learned they were not alone in the universe. They had also learned that they were strong enough to defend themselves. In the weeks that followed, every human colony in the galaxy received the same message. Earth stands. The alien invasion has been defeated. Humanity is safe. But the most important message was sent by War Commander Zexthul to every species in the Kethavar Empire. There is a species called humans in the Sol system. They are not like other species. They do not fight for conquest or resources. They fight for each other. If you are thinking of fighting humans, pray you survive the first minute. Word spread across the galaxy about the species that had defeated the mighty Kethavar Empire. Some species were curious about humans. Others were afraid. But all of them remembered the lesson. Never underestimate the power of beings who fight not just for themselves, but for the people they love. Years later, when young recruits joined the Earth Defense Force, they learned about the Battle of Jupiter. They learned about the heroes who had sacrificed everything to save their world. But the most important lesson they learned was simple. Humans are strongest when they fight together. Individual ships can be destroyed. Individual people can die. But the human spirit, the willingness to protect each other no matter the cost, that spirit is unbreakable, and that spirit is what makes humanity truly dangerous. To anyone foolish enough to threaten Earth, and the war had lasted less than 2 hours. But in that brief time, humanity had announced to the galaxy that Earth was not a planet of victims waiting to be conquered. Earth was home to a species that would fight like demons to protect the people they loved, and that made all the difference.